Hey, what's up everyone? My name is techgeekjosh and I'm back again with a new video. And this time it's the full review for the Huawei Ascend XT2 from at&t prepaid. So firstly, let's go ahead and take a look around the exterior of the XT2, starting at the top, which is where we have our earpiece, then our front-facing camera, then our 5.5-inch IPS LCD display, and our Huawei branding right there at the bottom. On the left side, we have our combination of our micro SD card slot and our SIM card slot, which in the box includes the ejection tool to pop this tray out. Or you can also use a paper clip. On the bottom, we have our micro USB charging port. No Type-C with this phone, but however, it does feature quick charge, which is a nice necessity for this handset. And what looks to be dual speakers, but only one of them is a speaker and the other one is a microphone. And on the right side we have our volume rockers, then on the bottom we have our power button. Both buttons feature a very nice and tactile response when pressed. And on the back we have our camera, flash, at&t branding, our iMeI sticker, and some more information stating that it is made in China and the model number is H1711. So now let's briefly talk about the display. So as I previously mentioned, we have a 5.5-inch IPS LCD display with a resolution of 720 by 1280 and 267 pixels per inch. And I've got to say, it's really crisp and really sharp for what it is. It's no 1080p panel, but 720p is still a very decent resolution in 2019. Obviously, it's not the best, but it's much better than some other handsets out there. Now let's quickly talk about the design. So if you couldn't already tell, this phone is basically all glass in the front with an all metal back cover. And well, all I can really say about it is that it's sturdy, it feels really nice in the hand, it's also very slim for what it is, much thinner than the original XT, and well, it just overall feels so much nicer than the original XT in many ways when you hold it. And well, that's pretty much it. It's just a much nicer phone to hold over the original Ascend XT, and that's definitely not a bad thing whatsoever. And before I completely skip over the fact, the XT2 also has 2.5D curved glass, even though when you hold it for the first time, it may not feel like it, and if you even try and feel for it, there is a very slight curve to the glass, but definitely nothing too noticeable, but it's there, so that also adds to the quality of the handset. Now onto the hardware of the Ascend XT2. So we have CPU-Z open, and that we can also see that it has a 1.4 GHz Qualcomm Snapdragon 435 MSM 8940 octa-core processor with 8 ARM Cortex A53 CPUs coupled with an Adreno 505 GPU. So with a processor like this, you know that it's ought to run very smooth and almost like butter, and that's essentially what it does. I have not had one issue in terms of the performance or anything of the sort since I started using it. It's just been a pleasure to use ever since, and well, that's that. There's not much to say about that. So now let's quickly take a look at a recent Geekbench 4 test that I did just before starting this very video. And as you can see here, for the single core score, we get a score of 656 with a multi-core score of 2900. And let's go ahead and compare the single core score. We're not even on the board. But as for the multi-core, we are above the OnePlus 2, but below, oh wait, no, my mistake. We are above the Huawei Nexus 6P, but below the Samsung Galaxy Note 4, which all of these handsets are rather old, so take that as you wish. But anyway, there's no problems in terms of the overall performance with the XT2. It's just been, like I just previously made mention, it's just been such a pleasure to use. Pretty dang snappy, much snappier than I was actually initially expecting from it. And may I actually add on to the fact that it may actually be a slightly better experience over the original XT. And now the last thing to test in the hardware department is gameplay. So let's go ahead and launch Real Racing 3, and as this is doing its thing, I will come back once I've basically set this game up. Okay, so now Real Racing 3 has all been set up, so let's go ahead and go through this tutorial really quick. Continue, and now let's go ahead and get to the actual gameplay. So far I see no performance problems whatsoever. It's just very smooth on my end. Well, over here going through the freaking dirt and cheating like I shouldn't be, but who cares because it's just a game for demonstration purposes. But yeah, as you can see here, no problems whatsoever. Everything is a pleasure to experience, especially with such a nice looking 720p display and whatnot. Obviously it's not the biggest display out there, but you can still see plenty of content on it, and well, that's that. May I say it again? Gameplay on the XT2 is basically, essentially wonderful. I don't know how else to put it. I'm pretty sure I should have turned up the volume just a little bit, but this is just a game. There's no real need for the sound, because all you guys need to really watch is the gameplay. Don't have to pay attention to the game audio. So there's essentially the gameplay for the XT2. Once again, I can't stop saying it, it's really enjoyable to play games on because of how optimized it is. May I say optimized. And just overall a very nice experience, and no choppiness, no slowness to it whatsoever. So that's also a very nice thing to really say about the XT2. Now let's go ahead and go into the settings and essentially show you guys what it's all about and all that good stuff. So here we see we have airplane mode, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, mobile data. Under more, we see we have mobile network, mobile hotspot and tethering. Then we have home screen style, and in this little section we have standard, which you can show all apps on the home screen with no app drawer, or the drawer, which is currently selected by default, show all apps on drawer screen, which is essentially this right here. And then under display we have a plethora of options, but they're pretty basic options to say the least. So we have wallpaper, font size, text style, screensaver, eye comfort, color temperature, sleep, and auto rotate screen. Then we have sound, notifications, and status bar. And under that we have notification turn on screen, which basically turns on the screen when notifications are received. Post notification light, notification method, and battery percentage, which for the battery percentage we can either do not show it next to icon like it's currently selected, or in icon. If I select that, bring it in closer, you can see that the battery percentage is in the icon, which could look clean, but in my opinion I like the original next to the icon. In my personal opinion, that's much nicer to see and whatnot. Then we get your navigation key, and under here we can actually basically change around the buttons and add a little toggle to pull down the notification tray like so. If you don't want to have to reach up there and do it, you can add that little button. So that's a very nice thing to see. Then we have screen lock and passwords. Then we have passwords. I currently don't have a lock screen on this phone. It's just the normal swipe, aka the default one. Smart unlock, password unlock limit, clear data, which basically clears the data if the lock screen password entered incorrectly let me get this straight. Clear data if lock screen password entered incorrectly too many times. That probably threw me off because I don't think that's proper, how you say, grammar or proper wording in the right places. Anyway, lock screen style and lock screen signature. Backing out of that, under security and privacy, we have blocked virus scanner, which is kind of unique and very interesting. And then under additional settings, we have a lot more options, such as set up SIM card lock, show passwords, device administrators, unknown sources, allow high suite or HI suite to use HBD, revoke high suites HBD authorizations, storage type, trusted credentials, user credentials, install from SD card, cleared credentials, trust agents, which is currently grayed out, screen pinning, and apps with access to usage. And then we also have location access, file safe, and app lock. And then we have a little something called Smart Assistance, which in here we have motion control and one-handed UI, then mirror share, schedule power on and off, and touch disable mode, which in short basically prevents mistaken operations being carried out on your phone when it's in your pocket or bag, and glove mode, which glove mode, if I'm not mistaken, makes the display a lot more sensitive if you're wearing gloves in different temperatures and whatnot. Basically increases the touch sensitivity on the phone, on the screen. Then we have do not disturb, accounts, Google, apps, permissions, and memory and storage. We see that we have 16 gigabytes free, but out of that 16 gigabytes, only 7 gigabytes were free to the user after everything is all set up. And that's mainly due to the fact that EMUI 5.1 is the version, takes up most of that, which is a very huge downside to this overall, UI. It's definitely not the best UI to have, but if you're a Huawei fan, well, you may be able to live with it. But honestly, in short, it's just not the best UI in my personal opinion, and probably you too, depending on who you are. So right now I have 4.62 gigabytes free, which is a little on the low side. I'm usually setting up pretty high at like 8 or 9 gigabytes still free, if I'm not mistaken. And well, you can see that firmware takes up 6.83 gigabytes and whatnot. And we also have a storage cleaner, and it is also coupled with 2 gigabytes of RAM, which is pretty standard by today's standards, but also getting obsolete. We should start at least by seeing 3 gigabytes of RAM on these budget phones, but honestly, I don't really see that happening anytime soon. Maybe in the future, but we only get 2 gigabytes for now. And also, 16 gigabytes is also getting a little bit on the obsolete side, so 32 gigs with 3 gigs of RAM is basically what we should start seeing in the future. And by the way, that would be a nice touch as well. And then under battery, we have power saving mode, ultra power saving mode, lock screen cleanup, power intensive apps, low resolution power saving, consumption level, and remaining battery percentage, which is essentially the same thing. But if I uncheck that, you can see that it basically goes away, which just by disabling it does make it look cleaner up there. Need I say more? But yeah, it also has, power saving mode and ultra power saving mode, which is a very good thing if you're running low on battery, if you're like stranded somewhere. Right now I'm currently sitting at 84%, and while we're talking about the battery, this thing packs a 4,000 milliamp hour lipopolymer battery, which is obviously sealed in because this is a all sealed in phone. The back cover is not removable, and it still gets me that it's actually this thin was a 4,000 milliamp hour battery. It's just crazy. And well, In terms of the battery life, for me personally, I'm currently sitting at 84%, as you can clearly see there. So far, no problems with it whatsoever. It's still on its first charge since I bought it, so I will expect the battery on this one to be probably even better than the original XT. So, no complaints with the battery for me thus far, and well, your mileage may vary depending on who you are. But in case you guys are wondering, the talk time is 23 hours, and the standby time is up to 35 days, which is, you know, pretty much standard with batteries like this, so yeah. And then under advanced settings, we see we have date and time, language and input, simple mode, printing, accessibility, data transfer, and backup and reset. And then we have at&t software update, and under about phone is where we can find both the device name, which is the Huawei Ascend XT2 model number, EMUI version, which I just essentially went over, 5.1, and the XT2 here runs Android 7.0 Nougat. I am unsure if it's going to get Oreo. I have no real words except for that, or comments on the Oreo update for this phone, but I would have to say that it's probably not going to get it, and I probably shouldn't see that, even though I don't plan on activating it. You can also see the CPU, as I just talked about, RAM, internal storage, resolution, Android security patch level of July 5th of 2017, so a rather old security patch here. And we also get status, legal information, and authentication. I don't know why, but I've never been able to pronounce that word correctly. Authentication. I'm sorry if I'm probably mispronouncing that, but strangely enough, I've never really been able to pronounce that word correctly. And in terms of the bloatware, you guys really see any at&t apps? No, and that's because you can actually uninstall most of them, which is actually very nice. And there's probably some that you can't uninstall fully, but you can disable. And well, if you look closely, I don't really have a single at&t app on here. So that's a very nice touch with this device. Sorry about this, but going back to the storage really quick, you can expand it via a micro SD card, which is right here on the side of the phone, which you do need an ejection tool that came with it, or just a simple paper clip to pop it out, like I previously mentioned in the beginning of this video. And it can also support up to 128 gigabytes, so you got plenty of, external storage to work with. Next up is the cameras. So the XT2 has a 12 megapixel rear facing camera with an 8 megapixel front facing camera. So let's go ahead and jump into the camera and basically take a look around. And both of which, may I add, records in full 1080p, but only at 30 frames per second. No 60 FPS here. So if you're looking for a camera that records at 60 frames per second, well, this device is simply not it. So let's take a look at the toggles really quick. So up here we have our flash, auto, off, on, or steady on. Then we have our, beauty mode, which you can enable or disable, like so. And we have our camera flip button. Don't really need to show you guys how that works, because it's all obvious. We know what it does. And then on the bottom we see we have our recently taken photos and our video, shutter button because we're in photo mode, and our video button, which if I tap the video button, it goes right to the video mode, like so. Going back to the camera, swipe this way, and we see we have a pretty good selection of modes, such as photo, video, pro video, HDR panorama, time lapse, slow-mo, filter, watermark, audio note, document scan, and more. And if you tap more, you can basically, I'm assuming you can install more modes, but these are the ones that are currently installed. And now let's go ahead and swipe this way for our settings, which I thought was actually pretty neat. So here we see we have the resolution at 12 megapixels, and it goes down all the way to 6 megapixels at 16 by 9. GPS tag, assistive grid, mute, timer, audio control, touch to capture, capture smiles, touch and hold shutter icon, volume button function, ultra snapshot, and image adjustments, and as well as restore defaults. And now let's flip to the front facing camera. I'm even looking off screen for that. So here's the front facing camera on the XT2. So here we have our flash, auto, or off. We have our beauty mode, which we can enable or disable. Then we have the same camera flip button, recently taken photos under videos, photo button, and video button, like so. Go back to the photo button really quick, swipe this way. For the front facing camera, we see that we only get about 8 modes as opposed to the rear camera, which we got a lot more. Photo, panorama, video, time-lapse, filter, watermark, audio note, and the same more option. And we can also edit these, and preferably this is more information about each filter. So there you have it. Swiping this way, we see that we have our settings. Let's quickly go through these. So we can see we have 8 megapixels at 4:3, and it goes down to 0.3 megapixels at 4:3. GPS tag, mirror reflection, mute, timer, selfie window, audio control, touch to capture, capture smiles, volume button function, white balance, ISO, image adjustment, and restore defaults. So in terms of both the photo and video quality from the XT2's 13 megapixel camera, they're about what you would expect, but actually they have really nice detail in them, and overall the colors are just very vibrant, and they sorry about that right there. It actually for some reason turned off on me, and it basically told me to touch the screen to activate camera, which was quite unique. I've never really seen that before. I don't know if it's going to do it right now, but it will probably in a couple seconds if I'm not really active on it. So we shall see. But in general, like I was just saying, both the video and photo quality from the XT2's camera are very much passable for any type of social media and whatnot. So that's essentially my very quick, and I mean very, very quick, opinion about the camera quality and video quality from the XT2's cameras. So that looks like it's going to do for me in the full review of the Huawei Ascend XT2 from at&t prepaid. And well, with that being said, I will catch you guys again in the next video.